They say the worst poison in a man's life doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the ones you let through your front door. For me, that poison wore perfume. Her name was Emily. She was my son's wife. And from the first day I met her, something about her smile never sat right. Too sweet, too practiced, like a mask hiding teeth. But my son, Michael, he was smitten. I can't blame him, I suppose. He was young, barely 24, still looking for someone to build his life with. She was clever, sharp-tongued, and beautiful enough to make men stumble over themselves. When he brought her home to meet me and his mother, I shook her hand and felt something cold there. Not temperature, intention. I saw the way she looked at our house, at the furniture, the old photos, the little details of our family's life. Not with warmth, with calculation, like she was already deciding what she could change. I told myself I was imagining things, that a father's suspicion was just overprotection. I wish I'd trusted my gut. At first, Emily played her part well. Smiles at family dinners, polite words to my wife, little compliments that sounded just right. But behind those smiles I saw her eyes, always searching, always measuring. Michael adored her. He defended her at every chance. If she forgot to thank us for something, he'd cover for her. If she made a sharp remark, he'd laugh and say she was just teasing. But slowly, so slowly it was like watching paint peel, things began to change. Michael stopped visiting as much, stopped calling. When we did see him, his words grew shorter, his tone sharper. He'd cut me off mid-sentence, roll his eyes at his mother. "Don't start lecturing me, Dad," he'd say, smirking. "I've got my own family now." That word, family, like we were no longer part of it. And Emily? She would sit there, silent, watching, her hand on his arm, her smile faint but satisfied. The poison was working. The first real crack came on my wife's birthday. We'd planned a small dinner, nothing fancy. Just the four of us, like old times. My wife spent the whole day cooking, baking his favorite pie. She was so excited that Michael arrived late. No apology. Emily walked in ahead of him, dripping with jewelry I'd never seen before. Dinner was tense. Michael barely touched his food. Emily picked at hers with disdain. Finally, my wife asked gently, "Is everything all right, sweetheart?" Michael slammed his fork down. "Why do you always nag? Can't you just enjoy one night without pestering me?" I froze. My wife's face crumpled like paper. She whispered, "I was only asking." And that's when Emily leaned in, her voice sweet as honey but sharp as glass. "Maybe if you weren't always smothering him, he wouldn't feel that way." It was like watching her pull the strings on a puppet. My son's anger wasn't his own, it was hers, fed into him like venom. I slammed my hand on the table. "That's enough." Michael glared at me, his eyes burning. "Don't you talk to her like that." "I'll talk however I damn well please in my own house," I shot back. Emily smiled faintly. And in that smile I knew she had won this round. From then on it was war. Michael grew colder with each visit. He mocked me in front of his mother. He raised his voice when I tried to give advice. He even accused me once of trying to control him. Words I knew weren't his own. One night, after another fight, he shouted the words that burned into my chest like fire. "You're nothing but a bitter old man, living in the past. I don't owe you respect. I don't owe you anything." And Emily stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder, her smile cruel and triumphant. My wife cried herself to sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the words echoing in my skull. Nothing. Old man. Don't owe you respect. My son. My own flesh and blood. But he wasn't speaking for himself any more. He was speaking for her. The poison had taken root, and I knew deep in my bones this wasn't just disrespect. It was the start of something far darker, something that would end in blood. Asterisk, asterisk. I always thought the bond between mother and son was unbreakable. My wife raised Michael with every ounce of love she had. When he was little, he'd cling to her hand, bury his face in her dress when strangers came around, whisper secrets only she was allowed to hear. But poison doesn't care how deep the roots go. It finds a way. Emily knew exactly where to strike. It started with little comments, whispered just loud enough for me to hear. She worries too much, Michael. Don't you think? She doesn't trust you to live your own life. Maybe she just wants to keep you tied to her forever. At first, Michael brushed it off, but slowly I saw the words work their way into him. His tone changed. His visits grew colder. The breaking point came one Sunday. My wife had invited him for lunch, like she always did. She made roast beef his favorite and fussed over the table, setting it just so. I could see the excitement in her eyes, like she was hoping maybe this time, things would be normal again. They arrived late, as usual. Emily waltzed in first, her perfume strong, her smile practiced. Michael followed, his eyes already narrowed. Dinner's ready, my wife said warmly. I made your favorite. Michael sat down, glanced at the plate, and sneered. Roast beef again? God, Mom, do you ever think I might want something else? Her face fell. You thought wrong, he snapped. You always think you know best. You don't. I slammed my fist on the table. That's enough, Michael. But Emily leaned forward, her voice soft, sweet. He's only being honest. Isn't that what you wanted? Honesty? My wife's hands trembled as she set the dish down. I saw tears in her eyes, but she tried to hide them, tried to smile. Maybe next time. I'll ask first, she whispered. Michael rolled his eyes. Don't bother. That night, after they left, my wife sat at the kitchen table long after the dishes were washed. She stared at her hands, silent. When I touched her shoulder, she whispered, What happened to our boy? I didn't have an answer, but in my heart, I knew Emily was cutting the strings of love one by one, and Michael, blind and stubborn, was letting her. Weeks later, the poison finally spread too far. It was a rainy evening when the phone rang. I picked it up, expecting Michael's voice. Instead, it was Emily. You should stop calling so much, she said flatly. Michael doesn't need you and your wife hovering over him. My jaw tightened. Put my son on the phone. She laughed. He's busy. With me. You'll just upset him like always. Listen to me. No, you listen, she cut in. Your time is over. Michael doesn't need parents anymore. He has me. And the sooner you and that woman of yours understand, the easier this will be. That woman, the rage in me nearly boiled over. That woman is his mother, the one who gave him life, who sacrificed everything for him. Don't you dare. She hung up when I told my wife. She cried silently, tears slipping down her cheeks. The next day, Michael came by, stormed into the house, and shouted, Why did you harass Emily on the phone? She told me everything. Why can't you leave us alone? Leave you alone? I roared. We're your parents, Michael. We raised you. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing. He snapped, his face twisted with fury. All you do is control, criticize, and cling. You're pathetic. Both of you. My wife gasped like he'd struck her across the face. I stepped forward, fists clenched. You watch your mouth. Emily appeared in the doorway behind him, smirking. Don't blame him. He's just finally telling you the truth. Michael shoved me hard in the chest. Don't talk to her. Don't even look at her. She's the only one who respects me. I staggered back, my chest heaving. My wife sobbed quietly behind me, and that's when it hit me. He wasn't just disrespecting us anymore. He was erasing us, our son. The boy we raised, the boy we loved, had been replaced by something else. A puppet, a weapon aimed right at our hearts. That night, lying awake, I made a vow if my son wanted war, he'd get war. If Emily wanted to poison him against us, she'd learn what happens when you provoke a man who spent his whole life building. Breaking and surviving, I had tried patience. I had tried love. Now it was time to prepare for something else, something final. You can forgive harsh words. You can even forgive disrespect if you force yourself. But once hands are raised, once blood is drawn, forgiveness dies. That's what happened the night my son crossed the line from disrespect to violence. It was late autumn, the air sharp with cold. My wife had been unwell, a cough that wouldn't leave her chest. I called Michael, asked him to come by, just to sit with her. I hoped maybe a glimpse of the boy he used to be would break through the poison Emily fed him. He arrived 2 hours later, already angry. Emily stayed in the car. The moment he stepped inside, his voice was like a blade. Why'd you call me? You know I don't have time for this. Your mother's sick, I said, keeping my voice even. She misses you. He snorted. She misses controlling me, you mean? My wife, pale and weak, came out of the bedroom. She smiled faintly. Michael, I just wanted to see you. That's all. He looked at her like she was nothing. Don't guilt me, Mom. I've got enough of that from her. He jerked his thumb toward the car. My wife's smile trembled. I wasn't you always are. He shouted and then it happened. He shoved her. Not hard enough to knock her to the floor, but hard enough to make her stumble against the wall. I saw her eyes go wide with hurt, not just from the push, but from the knowledge that her own son had raised his hand against her. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed him by the collar, slammed him against the wall. Don't you ever touch your mother again? His eyes burned into mine. Or what, old man? For the first time his fist came up. He swung. The punch caught my jaw, hard enough to rattle teeth. I staggered back, tasting blood. My wife screamed. Michael stood there, chest heaving, eyes full of hate. My boy, my son, you've always been in my way, he growled. Both of you. Emily's right. You're weak. You're nothing. And one day soon I won't have to deal with either of you again. He stormed out, slammed the door so hard it cracked the frame, and disappeared into the night. My wife collapsed into a chair, sobbing. I knelt beside her, holding her hand, my chest burning with fury. He'd laid hands on his own mother. There was no coming back from that night. I sat alone in the dark, thinking of the years I'd given him. The sacrifices? The nights I worked double shifts so he'd have clothes, food, school. The times I went without so he wouldn't have to. And now? He wanted us gone, erased. I whispered to myself, if blood turns to poison, there's only one cure. I started planning. The barn out back had always been my sanctuary. Over the years, I'd stocked it with tools, wood, chains, nails, everything a man could need to build. But tools can be used for more than building. They can be used to trap. I began with the door, reinforced the hinges, added a hidden latch I could throw from the outside. The windows I boarded halfway, just enough to let light in, but not enough for a man to climb through. Then I set the floor, wire snares hidden under sawdust, boards nailed into spikes beneath loose planks. Finally I rigged chains to the rafters, strong enough to hold a man if he thrashed Dot. It wasn't just a barn anymore. It was a cage, and I wasn't building it for livestock. I was building it for my son. Over the next weeks I kept my distance. Michael didn't call. Emily didn't visit. But I heard things, whispers in town about him borrowing money, rumors of fights. A bar brawl that nearly landed him back in jail. Each story was another nail in the coffin of the boy I once knew, and each story hardened my resolve. I wasn't going to let Emily win. I wasn't going to let my wife suffer another insult. Another tear Dot the next time Michael came. I would be ready. And this time, it would be the last time. The night came sooner than I thought. Emily called first, her voice sharp with venom. Michael's coming over tonight. He's tired of your games. You'd better listen to him for once, or things won't end well. I didn't reply. I just hung up and went to the barn to check everything one last time. The chains were ready, the snares set, the door latch oiled. I whispered to myself, tonight. The poison meets the cure. Then I sat on the porch, waiting for the headlights to cut through the dark. Asterisk, asterisk, part 4. Into the cage. The headlights came first, twin beams slicing through the night and across the yard. My gut tightened as I rose from the porch chair. This was at Dot. The car rolled to a stop. The engine cut Dot. Emily stepped out first, her heels clicking against gravel. She wore that smug smile, the one that always made me feel like she thought she'd already won. Michael followed, his shoulders squared, his eyes hard. Dot, my wife, stood at the doorway behind me, her face pale with fear. Please, Tom, she whispered. Don't fight him. Maybe he'll listen. I squeezed her hand gently. Not tonight. Tonight he learns. Michael strode up the path, Emily right behind him like a shadow with claws. Dad, he said flatly. No warmth, no respect. Just a word spit like ash. Michael. My voice was steady, but inside my blood was boiling. You've made this harder than it needed to be, he said. Emily and I, we've talked. You and Mom aren't capable of handling your lives anymore. You're old, weak. It's time you gave up the house, the money, everything. We'll take care of it. I barked a bitter laugh. Take care of it? Or take it? Emily's eyes flashed. Why fight the inevitable? You're both at the end. Let Michael step up and lead. Lead? I snapped. A man who raises his hand against his own mother isn't fit to lead a damn thing. Michael's jaw clenched. Don't bring her into this. She's in it. I roared, pointing to my wife behind me. Every insult you've thrown, every time you turned your back, every shove, she's felt it all. And you stand there demanding more? For a moment, just a flicker, I thought I saw doubt in his eyes. But then Emily's hand touched his arm, and the poison surged back. Enough, he growled. We're not asking any more. Tonight you give us what's ours, or what? I cut him off, stepping closer. You'll finish what you started the night you brought a knife into my house? His eyes narrowed. My words had struck home. Emily whispered in his ear, too quiet for me to hear. He nodded once. Then his fist shot forward, slamming into my chest. I staggered back, gasping, but didn't fall. Instead, I straightened, spit blood on the dirt, and met his gaze. You want it all? Fine, come and take it. I turned and strode toward the barn, leaving the door wide open, the light spilling out into the night. Michael sneered. What's this? Another lecture in your workshop? Something like that, I said, my voice cold as steel. Emily nudged him forward. Go, end this. And just like that, the trap was set. The barn smelled of dust and oil. Of old wood and rusted iron, tools lined the walls. Shadows stretched long beneath the rafters. Michael stepped in first, fists clenched, his eyes darting around. Emily lingered in the doorway, arms crossed, smirk still plastered on her face. I stood in the center, the bat in my hand. The same bat that had once saved my life. This is where you learn to work, I said softly. Where I taught you to build, to sweat, to be a man. Spare me the speech, Michael snapped. I'm done listening. Good, I growled, because I'm done talking. He lunged. I sidestepped, swung the bat low. It cracked against his shin. He screamed, stumbling, crashing into one of the booby-trapped boards. Nails punched through his arm as he fell. His howl echoed through the barn. What the hell? Emily shrieked from the doorway. Michael thrashed, trying to pull free, but the nails dug deeper. Blood dripped onto the dirt. His eyes blazed with pain and fury. You tricked me. He roared. No, I said coldly. I warned you. You just didn't listen. I yanked a chain hanging from the rafter, swinging it down around his wrist. In seconds I had him bound, straining, helpless. Emily rushed forward, but I raised the bat, pointing it straight at her chest. Stay back. She froze, eyes wide. You're insane. No, I said, my voice low. I'm a father who's been pushed too far. Michael snarled, tugging against the chains. You think this'll stop me? I'll kill you. Both of you. I stepped close, my face inches from his. No, son. Tonight you're going to learn what it feels like to be powerless. To have someone stronger decide your fate. His breathing quickened, rage giving way to fear. Emily hissed from the doorway. Michael, fight him. Don't let him win. I turned my head slowly, meeting her eyes. You did this. You poisoned him. You turned my boy into a monster. Her smile faltered. For the first time, she looked nervous. Good. Because tonight, she'd learned too. The barn door creaked shut as I shoved it closed, locking the three of us inside. The air thickened, heavy with tension and the smell of blood. I raised the bat again, feeling its weight. My son glared at me, chained and bleeding. His wife stood frozen, fear creeping into her perfect mask. This I said, voice low and steady, is where the poison ends? Asterisk. The barn seemed smaller now, its wooden walls closing in, as though they too were witnesses to the storm about to break. Chains rattled with Michael's every struggling breath, and Emily's sharp heels clicked nervously against the floorboards. I gripped the bat tighter. My knuckles were white, my chest burning with the weight of years of disappointment, betrayal, and heartbreak. Michael spat blood at my boots. You think you've won? You're nothing but an old man hiding behind traps. I leaned close, my voice a low growl. And you're a boy who never learned respect. Tonight you will. Emily's voice cracked the air like a whip. Michael, don't just stand there. Get out of those chains and end this. Her tone was shrill, commanding, not comforting. For the first time I saw Michael's eyes flicker, confusion breaking through the rage. Listen to her, I hissed, stepping back. The woman who's been feeding you poison. She doesn't love you, Michael. She loves what you can give her. Power, money, control. Look at her. Shut up. Emily barked. Don't listen to him, Michael. He's trying to twist you. But her mask had slipped. Her eyes darted nervously. Her lips curled in disdain. Michael's breathing hitched. He looked from me to her, doubt slithering into his hardened face. Emily? That hesitation was my opening. I swung the bat hard into his ribs. The crack echoed through the barn. He screamed, chains rattling as he doubled over. You bastard! Emily shrieked, charging at me with a broken piece of wood she'd grabbed from the floor. I pivoted, swung the bat low, and knocked her legs out from under her. She hit the ground hard, the air whooshing from her lungs. I stood over them both, my son chained, my daughter-in-law gasping on the dirt. This is the family you chose. Michael, I said, my voice ragged but steady, the woman who turned you against your blood. The woman who cheered when you disrespected your mother. You became her weapon. Michael's face twisted, pain and anger warring with realization. She told me. She told you lies, I cut in, pointing the bat at Emily, and you were too blind to see it. Emily's fear turned to venom. Don't listen to him, Michael. He's weak. He's pathetic. We don't need him. We'll take everything without his blessing. Something inside Michael snapped. He yanked hard against the chains, veins bulging in his arms, a roar tearing from his throat. The chain groaned, wood splintered, and suddenly one wrist came free. Emily gasped in triumph. Yes, kill him. Michael lunged at me, one arm still shackled, but his free hand clawing for my throat. His weight slammed me into the wall, knocking the breath from my chest. The bat slipped from my grip, clattering across the floor. We grappled, fists flying, blood spraying. He was younger, stronger, but I had rage, years of buried rage that no chain could hold back. I drove my knee into his gut. He doubled over, and I brought my elbow down across his back. He collapsed to his knees, snarling like a wounded animal. Emily scrambled to her feet, grabbing the bat. She raised it high. I'll finish this. But before she could swing, I lashed out, kicking the bat from her hands. It skittered across the dirt, out of reach. She screamed, slapping at me, clawing at my face. I shoved her back into the wall. She hit hard, sliding down in a heap. Michael panted on the ground, chained wrist still pulling at the beam, blood dripping from his mouth. He looked at Emily, then at me, his chest heaving, and in that moment I saw it, the truth dawning in his eyes. She used me, he whispered. Emily froze, her face paling. No, Michael, shut up. He roared, spitting blood. His voice was raw, full of betrayal, deeper than any I had inflicted. You twisted everything. You made me hate them. Her hands trembled. I did it for us. There is no us. His scream shook the rafters. I stood over them both, breathing hard. For the first time in years, my son didn't look at me with hatred. He looked broken, torn, but I wasn't done. I grabbed the loose end of the chain and looped it around his other arm. With a swift pull, both arms were bound again. He roared in protest, but it was too late. You wanted me dead, I said coldly. Both of you. And maybe I should be, but I'm not the one trapped here tonight. Emily scrambled back, eyes wide with terror. What are you going to do? I didn't answer. Instead, I picked up the bat and slammed it into the beam beside Michael's head, splintering wood inches from his ear. He flinched, sweat pouring down his face. You'll stay here, I said, voice low and dangerous. You'll sit in this barn and think about the man you became. The man who raised a hand against his parents because a woman whispered poison into his ear. Emily sobbed, crawling toward the door. I let her go, but Michael, he stayed, bound, furious, afraid. I stepped back, the bat still in my hands. This isn't the end, son. Not unless you make it the end. But know this, I won't forgive. Not ever. I turned, opened the barn door, and let the night swallow me. Behind me, Michael's screams followed, echoing into the darkness. Screams of anger, screams of betrayal, screams of a man who finally realized the price of listening to the wrong voice, and for the first time in years, I felt no fear, only fire, because the reckoning had come. Asterisk, asterisk, the barn door shut behind me with a heavy thud, its old hinges groaning like the voice of history itself. I leaned against it for a moment, catching my breath, the weight of the bat still heavy in my hand. The night was still, the air thick with the scent of hay, oil, and blood. Behind me, muffled by the wooden walls, Michael's voice carried on, a mixture of rage, fear, and grief. Chains rattled, boards creaked, and then his voice broke into sobs. I closed my eyes. My son, my only boy. Reduced to this dot, my wife appeared at the porch, her face pale and tear-streaked. She didn't ask what had happened. She didn't need to. She only asked, "Is it over?" I walked to her slowly, my boots dragging across the dirt, like I carried the weight of the world. "No," I said finally. "It'll never be over. But tonight it's done." She nodded, her lips trembling. Then she turned away, retreating into the safety of the house. I stood there a while longer, listening to the sounds leaking from the barn. Michael's fury gave way to pleading. His voice cracked as he shouted Emily's name, but Emily was gone by morning. The barn was quiet. The door creaked as I pushed it open, letting in a flood of gray dawn light. Michael sat slumped against the beam, arms bound in chains, eyes bloodshot, his face streaked with tears and sweat. He looked up at me. For the first time in years, there was no hate in his eyes, only hollow exhaustion. "Dad," he rasped. His voice was broken, childlike, nothing like the man who had stormed onto my land with fists and threats. I didn't know." I said nothing, She told me. She told me you'd never love me, that you only cared about yourself, that Mom was weak because of you. I believed her. I believed every damn word. His voice cracked again, and he bowed his head. And I became... I stepped closer, the bat still in my grip. He flinched, but I didn't raise it. Instead, I let the silence do the talking. I don't deserve forgiveness, he whispered. No, I said. My voice was calm, cold. You don't. He winced like I'd struck him harder than any bat could. I leaned down until our faces were inches apart. But you're still my son, and that's the worst punishment of all, because you'll live with what you've done. You'll live with her poison in your veins, and the memory of what you almost destroyed. He shook his head, sobbing softly. What happens now? I stood, unhooked the chain, and let it fall to the floor with a heavy clatter. Now, I said, turning toward the door, now you walk out of here a broken man, and every time you look at me, you'll remember the night your father had to teach you what it means to respect blood. He didn't follow me at first. He just sat there, staring at the floor, lost in his own guilt. Then slowly he rose to his feet, his shoulders slumped. His pride shattered. Emily never came back. Some said she packed a bag that night and disappeared down the highway, chasing another man, another fortune to bleed dry. Some said she fled town out of fear of what I might do to her if I ever saw her again. I didn't care. She was gone. That was enough. Michael stayed, though. Not in my house, not near my wife, but in town. I saw him sometimes wandering the streets, looking like a ghost. Folks whispered about the fight, about the screams they'd heard echoing through the fields. They asked me what happened. I only ever said one thing. My son forgot who he was, and I reminded him. That shut them up quick enough. Life moved on. Seasons turned. My wife's health held steady, though the shadows under her eyes never truly faded. She'd sit on the porch sometimes, knitting, watching the road like she half expected Emily to come strutting back with her smug smile. I told her not to worry. Emily was gone for good. Snakes don't return to burned fields. Michael came by once, months later. He stood at the edge of the yard, hands shoved in his pockets, head bowed like a boy waiting to be scolded. Dad, he said softly, I didn't invite him in. I didn't embrace him. I just looked at him long and hard until he shifted uncomfortably. Finally, I said, You've got work to do. Work on yourself. Work on earning back what you lost. Don't come back here until you've started. He nodded once, shame thick in his eyes. Then he turned and walked away. I don't know if I'll ever see him again. At night, I sit alone sometimes, the bat leaning against the wall beside me. I run my hand along the smooth wood, scarred from years of use. It's more than a weapon. It's a reminder of how close I came to losing everything, and how far a father will go when pushed too far. People think revenge is about blood, about ending someone. They're wrong. Revenge is about making someone live with what they've done, making them carry the scars every day until they break or change. My son tried to kill me. My son turned his back on his mother. My son chose poison over love. And yet, he's still my son. That's the curse. That's the punishment. For him, and for me, Because no matter how deep the betrayal cuts, no matter how much blood is spilled, family leaves scars that never fade, and I'll carry mine until the day I die.